Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon. I am Herman.
I'm Dee, and welcome to H&D Abroad. This channel is all about us being mid-career professionals and our journey to becoming expats. That includes all the background work you need to do, including research, scouting trips and travel, as well as getting to know and learning from friends, including people like you, as we are choosing a place eventually that feels like home. So if you are interested in that,
Please subscribe.
share.
Please like this video.
And like this video.
And make sure you hit that bell so that you know whenever we're on and you can be a part of this process with us also.
Absolutely. So we're going to take a deep breath. We spend a lot of time thinking about how to share and what to share. And we are so thankful when people write in the comments that the information is helpful or offer ideas. So whether you are joining us live today, thank you for joining. If you are joining us in the future, say hi in the comments. We really appreciate knowing that our content is making a difference in your journey, and that our risk of being vulnerable as we kind of figure things out, we are not experts. We're sharing our wins and our lessons learned.
Continued.
Absolutely. So being transparent is our goal. It's our goal. And so letting you into a part of us, like our learning process with being marriage partners is deeply personal. And I feel a bit vulnerable, but I have appreciated good mentors throughout our dating years and our marriage years, and couples that have come alongside us have been vulnerable and have shared, and that has made a difference. I know community has made a difference in so many other parts of our lives. We want to add it to this journey. So how do we want to start today?
Well, I'll give you a little bit of background. She'll kind of monitor me, make sure I don't get too much. A little bit of background about who we are. We've been married almost 25 years. And I've enjoyed every day. We have learned a lot of communication skills over that time. Now, reveal, we both are behavioral scientists by educational design. So we came to a relationship with what we understood communication was and how that was supposed to go. And we are realizing at almost 30 years of friendship that is a continued learning process, which is good because it helps to not take for granted the conversation, the communication. What might I need to hear and learn today? And we've taken that approach into this experience of moving abroad. You mentioned, earlier on we did on our page, our H&D Abroad, we did Why Are We Moving Abroad, Planning as a Couple. And in that conversation, we started the conversation on why we were considering moving abroad. And you might want to discuss what it meant to you, what it means to you, and for how long it's meant to you.
Yeah, so in that video, we shared our individual journey toward considering moving abroad, our experience or lack of it, that would be me, in travel. But books have taken me around the world, have taken us
Correct.
around the world. And so there was an interest, but not a plan. And what I think really moved me initially from interest to a plan was when we started our family. We wanted certain experiences for our children, but the internet and things like YouTube and the ability to go live and see people in their everyday experience sharing has given us more information. It took motivating experiences, I think, that helped to move us from that would be a nice to have to getting a plan to and a timeline and setting goals that we will accomplish within a year or within several months during a year. And that was for me grief. Grief was a powerful motivator for me to say I needed space to grieve losing my father, and didn't have the ability to step away from my everyday life in a way that allowed me to spend the time healing. And so we started having some conversations there. The conversations were really, just me expressing myself and not necessarily asking for anything. But I think the underlying thing for me was that I was wanting to hear something that I didn't follow up with. This is how I'm feeling. Where do you think we could move forward?
And I think a part of that is the listener in me wanted to receive your, to use your word, your dreams. It was important to me to hear your dreams. I think part of the translation issue was my ability to differentiate between travel and relocate. My family traveled regularly. It was important to my father that we see as much of the world as he could expose us to. And even though we didn't get out of the country a lot, he did. But I got to a few small island trips when I was younger, things that I need to do now as an adult so that they mean something more to me. But he drove us to over half the states before I reached college. And that was a part of my traveling experience. As you go, you see. You go, there's a thing there. You go to see it in person. You go to see it up close and personal. So when Dee began to express moving abroad, I was fully open to long-term travel. And it wasn't what I felt was a resistance to moving, as much as my understanding of what we would be doing, and the importance of that. Because a part of that conversation was you named several places.
I did.
And moving, the moving concept is I go from here to there and I'm there. And going from here to there to there to there sounds like travel.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's I'm here 6 months, I'm here a year. I don't live here. I'm on a long-term visitation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on a long-term vacation. And my experience with research and information, a lot of the people who I watched who were doing it that way came off as vacationers to me,
Mm-hmm.
came off as tourists to me rather than expats.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took me a while to absorb the expat mentality of the world is my home.
Mm-hmm.
Instead
We're world
of
citizens.
instead of Topeka is my home or Mozambique is my home. It's the world is my home.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a part of the conversation was in that factor.
Yeah. I started thinking about what does it mean to a couple. Probably one of the earliest where I was intentionally looking for information about couples. I want to say thank you to Adelia Abor-Shade. Picky Girl Travels the World. She interviewed Tosh. Tosh, when she was talking about getting your partner to move abroad, moving abroad with your spouse, really gave me insight into there are other people who are doing the same things. You are, you're getting the education, the career, and then just a wanting to have a deeper living experience and not just deepening the impact that I have on the world through my career, through my job.
Mm-hmm.
I want to grow as a person. You can do that with a career, but I think you're taking it into a different perspective. And like I said, those were in the nice years.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize how important it was until I had a deep need for rest, a deep need for spiritual reflection, that I said, this is a must for me. I must slow down. That's not a travel mentality.
Mm-hmm.
That's a move
Mm-hmm.
mentality. And so coming together has taken many steps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And watching others' journeys, we've picked up. We've been able to identify specific steps that we want to share with you today. Communication skills. So as Herman said, we are psychology majors by training, and so thinking, speaking, listening, respect, compassion, seeing things from another perspective is a part of our training. But baby, when it comes to the doing,
yeah,
you have to slow it down,
mm-hmm.
and it's an iterative process. And that's what we want. The whole convincing your partner, how to convince your partner to move abroad is we want to lead out with this. These are skills.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a one and done. Mm-hmm. It's not a win or loss conversation. Absolutely. One-time conversation. Absolutely. Because there are multiple layers. So if you want to start, we can start with Stefan Speaks.
Stefan, I'm going to try to say his name correctly, Labassiere, of Stefan Speaks, did a presentation on communication and relationships and 7 keys to effective communication. It's those things that the logical knows. But we wanted to pull some of those pieces because we thought it was really relevant to how we approached this journey together.
Mm-hmm.
So that it became a together journey. The first thing is listen to understand. From the male's perspective, listening is a part of what we feel we're supposed to do. I don't know if we're always listening. I think we've learned the art of hearing. Listening to understand. Danica did just mention that she wanted to make some changes in her emotional life, in her physical life. And I had to step back in that long-term travel mentality to hear a request for a life upgrade.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's always important to me that what makes her feel better, I'm her husband. I want to make that available to her. But to recognize that as I'm getting older, that isn't always accessible to me. And that's not always my responsibility. And so here I was at the peak of a conversation that was not something just that we do together. This was a request for a complete life change,
Mm-hmm.
a complete life investment. What I had to do was take a step back and say, okay, so what am I understanding? What am I hearing? Not just in what you was sharing, but potentially unconsciously what you weren't sharing.
Right.
What you weren't sharing. I shared with her last night. My wife is an assertive researcher. So when she has interest in something, she's all in. And my understanding of that wasn't always because I was listening.
Mm.
I was hearing you. But I wasn't always listening. And moving into the listening phase, I think, was one of the beginning steps to evaluating where I was in the process and what I didn't want in the process, and then turned into me trying to communicate back to you.
Yeah. Well, I think when I think of listen to understand in relationship to moving overseas, sometimes, I came to a knife fight with a gun. I mean, like I needed to be ready to like defend my position. And sometimes when I thought about trying to convince you that this is the path that needed to be taken, that like I did research so that I could answer your questions and not I shared why moving abroad was important to me and then stopping to hear
Mm-hmm.
you reflect back. What did you hear when I said, I feel pressured, but when we went to X place, I felt relieved, and I want more of that. What did you hear when I said that? That's so, and then not being ready when you said, you know, um, my home is here, my family is here, my job is here, my work, the style of work, that I wasn't coming back with, well, you can do this and you can do that. You are expressing
Mm-hmm.
the need to find a path, and that you weren't being resistant to me,
Mm-hmm.
that you were really sharing, hey, okay, so you're presenting this and you have figured how you can make the individual side of
Mm-hmm.
this process work. Now I have to have time as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not resistant when I say nothing.
Mhm.
When I say I need to sit and think about that, that's not a pushback.
Mhm.
That's I need time to reflect. So our communication styles we've had to grow them over time to be able to say sometimes I could just shoot things off because I've had time to think about it.
Mhm.
My partner may need to massage the information more, may need to do their own research so that we can come back and just being able to come back and say, give me a minute to think about that.
Mhm.
Just the power of I hear you. I hear the anxiety in your voice. I hear the excitement that you have.
Mhm.
Can I take a little bit of time? Where did you go? I want to research this. Can we come back together after I take some time? That's what listening to understand has borne fruit in our move abroad plan.
Mhm. Next would be do not dismiss. That could be their point of view, their personal feelings, their approach, how they process.
Mhm.
You've heard us say from the very first videos we posted, D and I process differently. I appreciate that about us because it means we have more than one viewpoint, more than one avenue into solving things,
Mhm.
exploring things. Now, understand that does not always mean that feels collaborative.
Mhm.
But that first factor of listening to understand brings in the do not dismiss. I think those two tie very closely together. Um, every opinion that someone shares does not necessarily require, and this is for the men, does not always require a solution
Mhm.
or response. Um, Sometimes it's okay to allow someone to express where they are. And you say, I hear you and I receive that.
Mhm.
Um, because you may never have a full opinion about that. Because this was integral to as a part of our growth process, I was going to have to come back and say, where am I in this process?
Mhm.
And what I came back with was different in approach, in mindset than where you were.
Mhm.
And I know that originally that caused you a little bit of anxiety
Anxiety.
because, as you stated in one of our earlier videos, it made you feel that I was doing it because you were doing it.
Yeah.
And let's be honest. Let's be honest. There is a part of that. There is a part of that.
Yeah.
This is important to you, and because it's important to you, it's important to me. But at the same time, I have to be realistic about how is this going to affect me and what my individual goals and expectations are. Am I fully aware of what my goals and expectations are? Have I taken time to think about that? Because you definitely don't want to be a million miles away somewhere and go, "Ooh, I want to," and that's not available to you somewhere else. And now, we've watched videos of several couples who together have moved abroad, who together have had to come back to the States because one partner had something a dream they had to follow that brought them back here. And that's okay. That's okay if the complete part of the process is accepted by both.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to make sure that I say the do not dismiss is all about, you know, my partner's point of view has value. What I have to share is valuable and
Mhm.
important to me, but there is no, uh, one way, one perspective as a part of a healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so my partner's viewpoint, my partner's fears, discomfort, their need to be engaged in the process at a different pace is not a threat.
Mm-hmm.
And so the convincing is all about moving together and being open and honest about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, so we've been talking about what we have said, but another perspective is body language.
Mm.
I'm speaking volumes
Mm-hmm.
with my mouth, but also how I approach the conversation. So one of the skills that we learned, and we actually did Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University
Mm-hmm.
as the underpinning of our debt payoff journey. And a lot of people ask him the same thing. How do I get my spouse on board with paying off debt? How do I convince my partner that being debt-free is valuable? And one of the strategies Dave shares is, put the kids to bed, intentionally have a date night kind of after hours plan where you can either come away at the end of a day or
Mm-hmm.
go away, for an evening, or go somewhere where you can have an uninterrupted knee to knee, eye to eye conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you want to communicate is, I am sharing. And so you're using, I feel,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I see, because I need you to understand this is deeper than let's go, let's do. When I'm using those I phrases that help you to understand my internal or motivation, that can connect you. That's really, when I am closed, my body will show that.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm open and I'm looking in your eyes and I'm giving you space to say what's on your heart, taking intentional pauses, I want you to see I'm welcoming you in to the
Mm-hmm.
conversation with more than just my words, but with my body language.
And as a listener, things that you can portray as a listener and that you can view as a listener. If you're sitting there with your arms crossed, even if you're saying you're in the conversation, you can, that says something about this I'm resistant to. There's a feeling of openness, even when you're afraid to be open, when you release. And so I try to always, in this conversation, talk to you open, physically open, so that I make sure I'm receiving, and pay attention when I feel like I'm closing off, or when you're closing off. If I respond in a way that is in opposition to how you want to feel, that I recognize this is causing you some tension, and stop and say, what part of this encourage you to express that makes me concerned, that makes me afraid. I'm not yet sure I understand. I need to process also what you're putting back to me. Because your partner might come back with, I'm not into that. I don't like that idea. I don't know if I'm ready to make that kind of challenge. I'm too young. I'm too old. And people are getting those kinds of feedback. We've seen several people responding and saying that, my partner says I'm too old to want to travel, or I'm just in the middle of my career. A part of our conversation, a part of our premise for our page is that we're in the middle of our careers. We're not retiring anytime soon. And partially because there's more we want to do with our skills, and partially because we still need to be able to fund our lives.
Yeah.
we still have to live.
Thanks.
And we don't have a large bank account waiting for us, or high-end jobs that allow us to traipse across the world and it pays for us while we do whatever. Where we don't have that, so we have to plan. And that can cause anxiety. Well, if we do that, then I can't do this, and if I can't do that, then we won't be able to. And body language, because people don't always express that, even in open, honest conversations in couples. Sometimes the fear shows up in clenching.
Or silence.
Or silence.
Yeah.
So I think, go ahead.
No.
I think that leads us to being open and being honest. That.
Vulnerability is hard.
This conversation is vulnerability. This conversation, because we don't know you, and we're sharing with you. And what's funny is that can be tougher here because I do know you. What my objective is to express myself in a way that is authentic to me, but that also does not bury you, crush you, deter you, disappoint you. And so we've, as people, as humans, I'm guilty of it. You soften the blow, you soften the touch. When Dee came to me and said, hey, I'd really like for this to move into the process now, I wasn't prepared. Let's just be honest. And not because it wasn't something I wasn't willing to do. I had not put it in thought. There was no consideration as a current from here to there. Now, we've been discussing it now fully for about 2 years.
At least, yeah.
About 2 years. 2 years ago, we were in a different place. So the initiation of the conversation was at a place where I was like, well, I don't know if we can manage that. I don't know if we can. And even, but at the same time, my mind was still thinking, okay, this is future planning.
We've got 20 plus years before retirement. We
got even if we do this early, I got 10 years. Okay. We'll be moving into 60. We got 10 years. I'll still be young enough for us to do whatever. As we began to recognize health things and life processes and the transition of our children, the reality and the possibility of that coming closer. And I recognized that I had not put the thought into it that you had. And so what happens sometimes is then there's a conversation and because I got nothing, but I also process differently. So information, I was receiving information, I was checking the information. I did not always know how to express the information.
Right.
But you allowed me to come with what I had. I appreciate in front of the world the fact that in the midst of your anxiety, you said, oh, what are you trying to tell me? What are you understanding? What are you hearing? And that allowed me to become a part of your process so that it became a part of our process.
The be open and honest about moving abroad was able to happen because we had spent time doing that in other areas with help. So on this channel, we'll be talking about mental health and the power of building a team around you that helps you. And so communication and being able to share honestly, and being open to being honest in ways that shared things that may not have been pleasant for the receiver to hear. That can take some support. And I think I got to the point where I said, I'm willing to hear it all, the good, the bad, the ugly, because on the other side of this, we are going to be so much better at just living. And then the bonus is our marriage is beneficial. We're learning skills that we are now approaching our children differently so that and so these aren't just skills that are inside of a move abroad plan. It ripples into business relationships, how you just being able to be honest. If you can only present one side of yourself, or you are only open to hearing what is in agreement, that's not healthy. That's not healthy. I haven't seen it be there's going to be some short-term wins with that, but long-term, it is an infection that festers.
Agreed.
So people we're learning from, we want to say thank you to Lamar and Angela. They shared a video on moving abroad when your spouse is not on board. We had a really interesting discussion as we talked about what we saw, both in their body language and their ability to warm up and share that. Y'all, if you are out here and you are navigating these spaces, I hope that us sharing is important. I'm telling you, we have benefited from them in the comments. If you want to give a statement of, hey, you all covered, didn't get a chance to cover something that I see that was value, please put that in the comments, because that is helpful, seeing how they navigated where they chose to live. So the decision to move abroad, this convincing your partner thing, these conversations are ongoing. So the first gate you have to go through is deciding to go. Then it's, where do we go and when do we go? I mean, like, you're working these steps continuously, not just, okay, now we've checked off, don't dismiss what your partner has to say, and then that kind of goes to the background. It is a continuous conversation within a particular question, and it is a continuous part of how you navigate life as a partner. So, oh, hey, our Xmas life, y'all, I'm telling you, y'all, people are out here talking the talk, sharing, and we so applaud that, because I wanted to move to South America, and he was like, if we're going to go anywhere, we're going to Africa first. And I was just like, whoa, like, we got to go through the process again, that we're going through the process.
And that was what was really great for me about the conversation with Lamar and Angela, is that they chose a place that they both could agree on for personal reasons, and as a couple. He has a hobby that's very important to him, and he wanted to move to a place where he could participate in that hobby. That's a conversation, And that's a compromise. That's a big deal. It was a big deal to him. And they also moved when the aspects of his life, when it was important to him, when it also had value to him, and not just to her. As Black men, there comes a fear in, am I going to deal with the same thing everywhere else I deal with that I deal with here? Is there a place to hide? Is there somewhere to go? And it's important that you have that conversation as a couple, honestly, even when it hurts, so that you can say, okay, how do we find the middle place? Let's see, I'm gonna highlight this comment here. Wait. Where are we hide that?
Yeah. So this idea of even how you approach leaving. So, slow travel is something we want to talk about more, because maybe we don't have to decide before we leave. Like, y'all, there's more than one way to this lifestyle. And slow travel is the concept of slow travel. You want to explain what is slow travel?
It's kind of what we talked about at the beginning. What I understood the process is that we spend extended periods of time in various places exploring them. The Yarbroughs have been doing slow travel. Because we have not settled on a final place. We are working on visas in various places. But when we pull the brake up and we actually say, this is where we live, it'll be after extended traveling. We've also considered adding various places in the States as a part of that. When we began this conversation about moving abroad, some of the abroad was from our side of the country to the other side of the country.
Yeah.
Because there are factors in-house, so to speak, that still are a factor. The age of our parents, the new burgeoning lives of our children, as well as our careers. So those things are important. So, trying to decide a final place sometimes is easier by going to Mexico. Made the Mexico conversation relevant to me. It was a conversation. We were doing the things but when my feet were on the ground in Mexico and we were working through the process, and I was talking to the people and seeing the land and what was available. Oh, now because before that, everything was just somebody else's conversation. You can hear about racism your whole life until you've had a racist incident happen to you, an experience happen to you. It has a whole different effect from just, I'm a part of a disenfranchised group of people and I've been mistreated. It wakes up a whole thing. So I'm listening to all the people and their experiences, and they're going to Mexico and the sun is shining and life is great. And then I hit Mexico. And I took away from my experience what was positive and what worked for me, and what I began to see. Okay, I understand that. I see what they said. I agree with that. I don't agree with that. And I think slow travel allows for that exposure.
Absolutely. And so, there are ways to have this conversation. I think that even sharing that maybe what happens is that you try some places, even with a vacation time frame, a 1 week, a 2 week time frame, being able to say, maybe instead of staying in a hotel, we try to stay near locals, and because those kinds of experiences give your conversation a mutual starting point to say, could we do this?
Right.
And so I'm really glad we've had the opportunity to talk about kind convincing your partner to move abroad, to talk about some of the skills that we have developed, that we have seen as part of healthy communication that we wanted to share with you, to think and then to apply them to what happens in a journey, in a move abroad journey, where these things have been critical to moving ahead individually, growing as an individual, but also coming together on a plan that's a lifestyle shift. I'm so glad that you guys have joined us today, that you all have given us the opportunity to share. We are live every Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Time, having these conversations. We are looking for questions in the chat when you join us live. We go back, we answer your questions in the chat when you leave them, if you're joining us in the replay. So this is a dialogue and conversation. And so when you get to the stage of sharing, count us as a resource.
Please do.
So
that's it.
That's it for us today.
We're so glad you came and joined us today, or when you watch us in the future.
It's
Please.
Black History Month.
Right.
So we've got lots of Black history content, because next week we're talking about Black love and Black history, books that are inspiring our journey abroad. On the 18th,
I will be speaking with a group of Black men online in a panel, some of them you know, who will discuss what it's like being a Black man with their families abroad.
And then to round out the end of the month on the 25th, we are talking about our HBCU experience and how that experience is boosting our move abroad. So I hope you come back, participate, add to the discussion.
Subscribe.
Like this video and share.
And hit the notification bell. See you soon.
Bye.